Amen. Thank you, worship team. Good morning, everyone. It is great to see you. Those of you online checking us out, thanks for connecting with us. Hey, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for your generosity. Thank you for investing into people's lives and inspiring hope. Like we said, this is around the world, the impact that can be had as people hear about and see tangible love experienced and hope. And so thank you for your generosity. Kiddos, I know you are ready to go run amok, so we dismiss you, we release you, go have candy, we'll feed you a Red Bull and bring you back to your parents pretty soon. Love you, Michelle. Hey, there's only one primary announcement this morning. There's plenty of things in your guide to take a look at. But today is our vote on our 2025 budget. We've had several conversations. The budget's been available for a couple weeks. And here's the main idea. This is for members discerning what God has. And so you'll see a little yellow ballot in your guide. There's some others at the back at the information station. We've already had our offering. You can see a few of them in there. There's also a basket back there. And so if you are a member, this is your opportunity to go beep, 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 and discern what God's doing and mark what's happening. So, hey, have you ever had this moment? I want you to think back to a time that you needed some insight, right? You weren't sure how to handle something or what was next. Have you ever been in that moment where you're just not sure what to do? You need some wisdom. You need some insight. You're not completely understanding everything. And so you wanted to ask somebody for advice. You needed wisdom. Maybe that was in your marriage or as a parent. Man, I've needed wisdom for both of those. Maybe it was a potential job change or life change. Again, I've needed insight. I've needed help. I needed some people to help me process that. Maybe you're like, hey, what college do I attend? Or do I marry that girl? We ask these questions. How? How do I handle this? Or what am I supposed to do in this difficulty? Because every single one of us needs wisdom, right? Every single one of us has questions, concerns. We don't have it all figured out, right? Anyone just want to admit for a moment, hi, my name is, and I don't have it all figured out? Yeah. Because that's what the book of James is, my friends. That is what the book of James is. It's life-changing wisdom. James writes how to live in blessing through an intimate walk with God. We're going to be in chapter 3. Follow along in your Bibles or open your apps or check out the screens. Verse 13 says this, "Who among you is wise and understanding? Let him," what? Show it. So a lot like last week, it isn't just something we say, it's something we live. If you're wise and understanding, show it by your good life, by deeds done in humility that comes from what? Wisdom. See, wisdom activates. Knowledge understands, but wisdom activates. James, let's just be honest, has been stepping on our toes, right? You don't go to the book of James for a bunch of comfort food. This is like eat your veggies, right? James is just kind of gets up on our grill, into our face. He steps on our toes. Why? Because a little friction helps us look at our faith. Remember, James had been done the religious trail, and Jesus was his stepbrother, and he didn't believe in who Jesus was until Jesus rose from the grave. And that's when faith grabbed a hold of James, and he's writing to us how to live this practical, authentic, life-changing faith. And he continues that today. He wants to help us recognize some patterns, to ask, is this wise? Is that what God has for me? Really, what we want to understand, what we need to understand this morning is what is bubbling up in my life? What is bubbling up in my life? You know what I mean? Have you ever had that? Maybe it was just this morning. You had this great, delicious cup of coffee, and you're walking through the narrow halls on your way to Sunday school, on your way to a group, on your way to talk with somebody. Whoa! Somebody bumps you. You're like, ah! Right? And something spills. Something happens when we get bumped into. Or to say it this way, what is shaking you up, right? If I shook this up and you're like, no, Because we recognize there's something going on inside. We can't see it until it's released, but there's something going on inside. Yeah, I know, I totally would, but then I get in trouble. Something's happening inside of us that when it's all shook up, when it's all under pressure, it kind of goes pop, right? This Mentos causing a spilling out of each one of us. We all do this. We all have these reactions to what's happening in our life. And James is saying, pay attention to that. Recognize those patterns. Understand what's happening. And he points out to us two insights this morning. Really what you might call forecasts of how life is going. He shares with us two ways to identify and forecast how life is going. He's connecting the dots between our love and our faith, between what we love and how we live. Again, we'll start in the beginning of James chapter 3. Indeed, we all what? I know some of you, you're like, I wouldn't put that word many in there. I might make a few mistakes. Dude, I'm all in for the many, right? I make many, many, many mistakes. Any of you guys kind of stepping stupid, make some mistakes, right? Because if we could all control our tongue, we would be perfect and could also control ourselves in every other way. He's got to give us insight in this little tiny muscle in our mouth that we are in process, that our faith was designed to grow as we walk with God. See, James isn't aiming for perfection. He is telling us about a direction to our lives, that recognition where I still need God. I still need God, my friends. And I don't care if you've been doing church for 99.9 years, you still need God. Because He never designed this to be something we do on our own. It's someone we walk with, and from that vibrant intimacy, we live out the Christian life. And so the very first forecast we have is this: my words are revealing insight into me. My words are a revealing insight into me. We know this, that words have power. They have great significance. They bubble up from our heart and out of our soul. That's why verse 3 says this: we can make a large horse go wherever we want to by means of a small bit. And a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go. Even though the winds are strong. And in the same way, the tongue is a small thing, but it makes grand speeches. Think of it like this. This has happened in our family more than once, right? Maybe you have little kids, maybe you have young kids, you're trying to get to church, and what's happening? You're a bit late, right? Somebody can't find their shoes, somebody didn't wake up to their alarm, somebody's still eating breakfast when you're supposed to be out in the car, and as a parent, you get all happy, don't you? You're all happy that you're running late, that your kids didn't wake up, that they stayed up late, there's a mess in the kitchen. You're just all smiles that you're not going to make it on church. No, you're stressed. And what do we do as parents when we're stressed? Well, we try to motivate them to move faster with our words. Right? You know what I'm saying? We use our words to make them hurry up. So something happens, you're getting ready to church, everything's kind of going disastrous and crazy, and you're like, we have to go love Jesus, get the beep in the car. Right? Has that ever happened to you? Yeah. Right? I mean, this is what James is saying. Our tongue is telling something about us. It's revealing something that's going on in our heart. What we said steers what happens next, because there's incredible power in what we say. Or, again, take our family, Friday fun nights. Man, I love our Friday fun nights. Friday's my day off, and I love having this whole time in the evening just with my kids before the chaos of the weekend. And often, on a Friday night, we have this family event. We do something fun as a family almost every Friday night. But some Fridays, we're a little stressed, a little tired, a little cranky. You guys ever felt that on a Friday? Long week, lots done, and you're kind of like, And so you just feel this. You're like, oh, we want to have a great time together as a family. We want to have pizza. We want it to be delicious. We want to do a game or watch a movie. We just want it to be, hallelujah. But that's not how it feels, because something happens. I mean, just imagine with me, you're going to enjoy the night and have some fun, but then something burns. The dog steals a slice of pizza. The crazy and the chaos just gets compounded. You guys feel it? You know what I'm saying? Have you been in these situations where you're like, I have this dream of how wonderful it'll be, and then my emotions start to get the better of me, and out my mouth comes some words I didn't really like. We say something we didn't want to. And what happens in the room? Good feelings gone. Good feelings gone. This is like literally hi, this is Confession Hour with Pastor Dan. This is my journey as a parent. I literally have these dreams, and then I open my mouth and I see it crash and burn, right? By what we say, we suck the air out of the room and we make a mess, because the words we say both reflect and create reality around us. This is what James is saying. This is no small thing. Even though the tongue is a tiny little thing, it is no small thing. Take a look at where James continues. A tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And among all the parts of the body, the tongue is a flame of fire. There's a whole world of wickedness corrupting your entire body. It can set your what? Your whole life on fire. For it is set on fire by hell itself. See, our heart is on display when we open our mouth, when we type that comment, when we tell that joke, we send that email. When you speak, something is created. You set a temperature, my friends. You set a temperature in the environment, in the relationship, in the moment. See, God has given you, by your words, a power and a responsibility. Don't miss that. God has given you, by the words you use, a power and a responsibility. I mean, can you imagine? This one's cool. This is like blue flame of death. Right? Yeah. Sweet. Can I keep it? I mean, let's just be honest. There's great concern, because you know me on how I'm going to handle this, right? I mean, what on earth is he going to do with this? Because we know what can happen with this, right? Capital, we have felt the loss that a fire can do, haven't we? We know what a spark and a flame and a fire can do, how destructive it is. And so why wouldn't we pay attention to what James is saying about what our words can do? That they are a spark. They are a fire. James is saying that what you say sparks something. Is it healthy or is it destructive? Because let's be honest, there are times that our words can become verbal arson. We're starting fires because we don't like something. Gossip, team building, complaining. We have these issues where we go around setting things on fire because we want a reaction from people. And other times, not only can our words be verbal arson, sometimes our words are verbal vomit. Have you noticed that? It's complaining. It's nasty, it's stinky, it's messy. We're around somebody and we're having a good moment, and then it's just like, bleh, wah, 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 bleh. And we're uncomfortable. We don't know what to do with that. How am I supposed to handle that? That's kind of, you feel like you got it on you. Am I the only one who feels that way? I mean, our words create an environment around us. And what we say is lighting people up, positively or negatively, or it is creating problems and a mess around us. Because the power of the tongue affects those around you. So James continues, but if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambitions, where? See, again, this is what I love about James. It's so practical, but he's going after the heart. He's going after what's going on inside of us. He's saying, this isn't an insight, this is a forecast of where you're really at spiritually. So do not boast and do not be false to the truth, because your words are a way to evaluate what's happening in your life. What we feel like we are not getting or is not happening often comes out in our words. And that's why, my friends, we need a walk with God. That we need a walk with God, because we're going to bump up and have pressure and things are going to spill and it's going to be hard. And so if we don't have a walk with God, and by that I mean an intimacy with God. You know that word intimacy simply means into me see? If you have a relationship with God, that is an into me see. He sees inside of you and brings that out. We let God speak to us first. And we take our hurts and what's happening to Him, instead of taking it out on others. Because if I'm not careful with my words, that will create my problems. And what I say makes a mess. And check it out, he just continues with this. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above. If we have these selfish ambitions, if we're causing these verbal fires and vomit, that's not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambitions exist, there will be disorder, brokenness, chaos, hurt. See, my friends, do not let the enemy have a seat at your table. Do not let the enemy have a place in your conversations or take up space in your head. Or to say it real practically, if you're saying something about someone that you're not willing to say to them, you're likely in sin. If you're saying something about someone you're not willing to say to them, you're likely in sin. See, I remember years ago, I was on a missions trip to Venezuela. And I'll just be honest with you, I was in what I call the arrogant stage of my faith. I thought I had all the answers. I'd been a believer for just a few short years, knew a lot. God hadn't done a lot in my heart. I was in the arrogant stage of my faith. And their 5-year-old son was around us on this missions trip. This 5-year-old son of the missionaries, and he was just kind of talking a lot, acting up. This 5-year-old that we were staying with these missionaries, he was just kind of going nuts, ballistic, having fun, being a 5-year-old. And so I loudly proclaimed in my 20 years of life, well, if they just spanked him more, he'd behave better. I mean, can you imagine? I'm this 20-year-old kid on a missions trip in Venezuela. They're the missionary couple, and their 5-year-old kid's being a 5-year-old kid. And I'm arrogant and stupid enough to say, if they just spanked him more, he'd behave. And I turn around, no kidding, and his parents are right there. Ah, the fresh taste of shoe leather, right? I mean, man, I know some of us are ready, fire, aim sort of people with our words, right? I mean, I can be that way, ready, fire, aim. We speak, then we think, so we taste shoe leather more than we should. But James is simply cautioning us with what world do our words create? What world are my words creating? In my marriage, at work, in my neighborhood, with my family? Because the wisdom from above is, first of all, pure. It's also peace-loving, gentle at all times, and willing to what? Yield to others. It is full of mercy and the fruit of good deeds. It shows no favoritism and is always sincere. And those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of righteousness. See, what you say and how you say it makes a difference. It reveals your faith and the hurts or the development. It will hurt or develop another's faith. I know we're just starting the daylight savings, the darker part of our season in Oregon, but the weather's been just a little crazy, right? Like maybe, Crazy or not crazy? You just love the rain, right? I mean, this is like wacko world. I mean, it's like, I don't want the 80s and 90s, but I wouldn't mind the 60s and not the 40s, right? The weather's been a little crazy for me, at least. It's warm and sunny, and then it's cold and windy and rainy. We have tree branches down in our driveway. I'm picking up pine needles and leaves every day. And the weather's a little bit crazy, right? And so every day, we have to pay attention to the forecast. Every day, grab your phone, check out the news, check out a website. What's going to happen today? Because it isn't like 5 days from now I got to pay attention to. I got to pay attention to what's happening in the morning and noon and the evening because it all changes around here. It's like bring your shorts and bring your shirt, t-shirt in the morning, but be prepared for snow by evening around here. And so you got to pay attention to the forecast to know what's happening. And what are we going to get? Is it going to be rain, shorts, windy, or snow? And that's honestly a lot like our idea today. Because you and I have a climate. You hear me? You and I have a climate to ourselves. You bring weather with you. And I get it. You might be in the eye of the storm and not always notice it. But hear me, others feel it. You have a climate to you. You bring a weather with you, and others feel it. Something's happening in your life. Something's happening in your faith. And like the weather, people are observing our words and how we treat others, deciding if they want to go near us. Right? You tracking with me? We have a weather, we have a climate, we have a forecast to ourselves, and people are watching, and they're going, whoa, you're chilly, you're windy, you're crazy, you're blustery. I just don't want to do that today, right? They're deciding if they want to be around us. And so here is one big step for you today. If I could encourage you with one life-changing reality, it is this. Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. Be real. Be authentic. Don't put on a show. Because vulnerability unlocks so much in our life. Do you understand that vulnerability connects you to others and encourages others? The story you're going through, the struggles you have, the victories and difficulties, other people need to hear that. They need to be able to lean into that and see that. Vulnerability connects you to others. Vulnerability is spiritually empowering. It helps us grow. If we're not honest, we're not going to grow like we can. Vulnerability reminds us, again, of how much we need God. James 4 says it this way, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the who? To the humble, to the vulnerable, to those who go, I don't have it all together and I need more of God in my life. Because you were never designed to do life on your own or in your own power. Vulnerability creates healing. See, we live in a world that says fake it till you make it. Post it, picture it, filter it, perform it, but don't be honest about it. And God says no. Vulnerability creates healing. Check out James 5. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be what? Healed. And last, vulnerability provides opportunities. I can't tell you how many doors of ministry, conversations, and connections happen just because of that step of authentic vulnerability. And so, my friends, what's bubbling up in your life? What happens when you get bumped? And that's our other forecast today. Our last forecast today is this. The way I am spending my life is an insight about my faith. The way I am spending my life is an insight about my faith. See, James wants us to pay attention to what drives us, to what our desires are, to what's happening in our heart. Jesus talks about this a ton. Where your heart is, that's where your treasure is. Or James says it this way. Again, a nice, comforting verse. You adulterers! I think we'll just get name tags for all of us that says that, right? Not. We don't like that. That's uncomfortable. It's like, hey, James, and remember, James is talking to believers, guys. James is talking to believers, and he's saying, you adulterers, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? And this isn't eternal position. This is local intimacy. This is realization of the day-to-day. I say it again, if you want to be a friend of the world, you make yourself an enemy of God. You can't love the world and live in step with the Spirit. You can't love the things of the world and walk with God deeply. See, James is tying our faith into how we function. Not just what we know or what we do, but how we live. That what we spend our life on tells the true story of what we believe. What we spend our life on, and this is way more than money, don't mishear me. What we spend our life on tells the true story of what we believe. It's an indicator of our spiritual health because faith functions differently than the world. My friends, you have a different allegiance. You have a different allegiance. His name is Jesus. He is the King. And He will be the King no matter who is in the White House. He'll be the King no matter who is elected to Salem. He is the King forever reigning. And one day everyone will bow down. Every nation, every tongue will confess that He is the King. You have a different allegiance. His name is Jesus. And because of that, how we treat others and how we handle trials and what we pursue are transformed. See, friendship with the world, because I don't want you to misunderstand what James is saying. Friendship with the world is a deep and intimate relationship with the world's ways and means. The world's ways and means. What we have and how we do it. This is not simply morality. This is not simply morality. It is the affection of your life leading the direction of your life to look like the world. I'll say that again. You want to be challenged? What's James saying? It's the affection of your life, what you pursue, what you're passionate about, what you worship. It's the affection of your life leading the direction of your life to look just like everybody else, to look just like the world. Anyone have a smartwatch? See, one of the features of a smartwatch is health. Now you can tell I don't use it for that, but it helps tell us how our heart is. Often my watch, if I get a little too animated, goes, "You've been in an accident. Would you like us to call 911? Thanks, Siri. But one of the reasons people get a smartwatch is because it helps them understand their health. It helps them understand where their heart's at. It reveals things like high blood pressure, a regular heartbeat. It helps you in a fall. And James is challenging us to know what our heart is pursuing, what we're falling in love with, of what we really value. And again, James just goes on this whole comfort trip, making us feel really good when he says these next words. Look here, you rich people. And again, we talked about that. That's if you make more than $26,000 a year, you're in the top, it's at least the top 10%, if not the top 5% of all wealth in the world. So we all categorize here. Look here, you rich people, weep and groan with anguish because of all the terrible troubles ahead of you. Well, there's the health and wealth gospel right there for you, right? And I get it. This is so hard for us to grasp as Americans. What on earth are you talking about, James? I mean, we're told again and again, if I have a level of wealth, I have a level of happiness. If I have a level of wealth, I have a standard of living. I get to be happy because of what I have. It's so hard for us to grasp as Americans that money doesn't make all things better. Your wealth is rotting away. And your fine clothes are moth-eaten rags. What's he saying? See, we can look to money as our security. We can look to money as our security and what we buy to show off our identity. You tracking with me? In America, we're told, hey, you got enough bank? You're going to be happy. You got enough bank? You're going to be secure. You got enough bank? The economy's crashing isn't going to hurt you as bad. You got enough bank? It's going to be okay. You got enough stuff? You're awesome. You got enough stuff? You're important. You got enough stuff? You better wear it and show that you're better than others. And he's saying, no, don't look to that for your security or your identity, because your gold and silver are corroded. The very wealth you were what? Will eat away your flesh. like fire. And so when it comes to money, what's bubbling up? What's spilling out? What's the pressure creating and causing in your life? What's happening in your soul because of this? Lean in, because I don't want you to miss this. When you keep a blessing, I don't want you to miss this. Lean in. When you keep a blessing to yourself, it will die. When you keep a blessing to yourself, it will die. Again, look at the Old Testament, look at the New Testament. When you keep a blessing to yourself, it will die. It will dry up. It will not satisfy. When you keep a blessing to yourself, it will die. But when you give it away, it multiplies. Just like vulnerability is incredibly powerful in developing our faith, so too is generosity. And so my friends, not only be vulnerable, but be generous. Generosity frees you from the scarcity mentality. The scarcity mentality is robbing us blind in America. It says this, there's one slice of pie, and there's one pie, and I need a slice of it, and I got to get the biggest and best slice of it, or at least have enough just in case I need more. Generosity frees you from the scarcity mentality because it was never yours. Generosity reminds us of who really provides for us. And generosity is what pours out of a God-soaked life. And so hear me. Don't let the resource become more important than the source. Don't let the resource become more important than Him. Because James is describing how faith sees things differently, my friends. James is saying, what if we actually took Jesus at His word? What if we lived in step with the Spirit? What if we let God develop our faith in such a way that we don't use our watch to measure God's timing? And we don't use our power to measure what is possible. And we don't use our bank account to measure what matters. But we live in such a way that how we spend our life is an example to others. That what we do with what God has entrusted us reveals who sits on the thrones of our heart. And so here's the deal. Could I just simply challenge you to be so connected to Jesus that nothing else compares? To be so connected to Jesus that nothing else on this planet compares. Again, don't mishear me. We talked about this several months ago with 1 Timothy 6. God gives us things to enjoy. God's not, y'all need to live in poverty. It's just what is the source and what is the resource. And so imagine if Jesus became so much more than anything else we could buy with the bills in our wallet. Because if you're young, you have a whole lot of future to throw away. You have a whole lot of future to throw away if you're young and you chase after and spend your life on the wrong thing. And if you're old, you have a whole lot of legacy at stake. What are you spending your life on? What if we just pray for a generous heart and make people a priority over prosperity? Wrapping up, a few years ago, we were on our way back from Phoenix to Virginia, dropping our son off for college. And so we brought a bunch of his stuff. We took him to college. We had a great time. We had some souvenirs, and we brought our bags back, and honestly, they were overstuffed. Have you ever been in that situation? My wife is incredible. She's a planner. She literally brings scales at times to weigh it so we don't fall into the same trap again. But this time we had such a great time in Phoenix on our way back to Arizona, to Virginia, that we got in line, we had our bags, and they weighed them. And it was over 50 pounds. You ever been in that situation? That ain't fun, guys. We had too much weight in our bags. And if your bags are overweight, the options are get rid of some stuff or pay a very hefty fee. You thought that $35 for your bag was a lot? Try being overweight with that bag for a lot. And so we stepped out of line and we went over to the trash bin. I mean, again, this isn't what we had planned. It wasn't like we were keeping paper. We were keeping great things that we had a fun time in Phoenix, and we're bringing home souvenirs to the other kids, and our bags got overweight. This is not what we had planned. But we had to decide, what will we do? What are we going to do? We're standing by the trash can. Do we throw stuff away? Do we throw the things away that we wanted to bring home? Do we throw this stuff away to make weight? Do we put what we wanted in the trash instead of keeping it and bringing it home? Do we get rid of these souvenirs for our kids? And so we're like, what if we just started taking things out of our bag and putting them in our pockets, right? Have you ever thought about that? The weight is too much, so what if, because again, they don't weigh you. I'd have a hard time if they weighed me, right? They don't weigh you, they weigh your bag. And so we're like, well, what if we just grab a whole bunch of stuff out to make weight and just put on extra layers of clothes, put everything in our pockets? What if we just stuffed ourselves, 5 shirts, 10 pants, stuff in our pockets, right? What if we just kind of put on everything so our bags made weight? Then hear me. The bags would have passed the weight check, but we wouldn't have passed the weight in our lives. You see what I'm saying? The bags would have passed the weight check, but we wouldn't have passed the weight in our lives. See, God is revealing some key things in our heart by our words and our wealth. And getting past security, sitting in the narrow seats, flying back across the country with all the baggage on us instead of in our luggage wouldn't have been a good idea. But that's often what happens in our lives. We've forgotten to leave behind things to move ahead where God's calling us. We're not paying attention to the weight in our souls and God's solution. And so the God solution has this as its result. That we must compare this verse with what's spilling out of us in Galatians 5. The Holy Spirit. A walk with God invites the Holy Spirit to fill out our lives. And He produces this kind of fruit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Can you imagine what could happen? Where that's how our words were and that's how we're spending our life. With love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. God is inviting us to pray dependently and participate deeply to answer what is bubbling up and what will we do next. God, thank you for this morning. I know that the book of James has not been easy. It's challenging us to put our faith forward by what we say and how we spend our life. And so, God, would you just take this time of response to help us, to remind us that maybe we just feel dry spiritually, distant from you. May we draw near. God, maybe you've just been trying to speak and we put up some walls because we're hurt. Would you break through them? God, we don't want to come and sing some songs and get on with our Sunday. We want to meet with you because you are worthy. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.